So we've been chatting for a little while now, but what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good, man. Kind of, enjoying the at home. I just got a PS5.
Oh,
Yeah, dude, and it is beautiful. I understand why everybody wants it. I get why it's like the hottest thing right now. My PS4 wasn't turning on anymore. And so finally, I was trying to wait it out, and I was like, I don't need it. I don't need it. And then finally, I was like, all right, I'm gonna hit up a boy who
yeah.
he is so good at getting these things. It's wild, and he doesn't use bots. He's just his luck is like out through the window with his luck, and so he was able to catch me one literally on the first try. And
Dang.
so yeah, so he was like, bro, just shoot me whatever I paid for it. He's like, I won't be upselling it, and he's like, you could have it. I was like, all right, sick. So I unboxed it yesterday. It's massive though. So
Oh,
heads
yeah,
up,
yeah, that's what I've heard.
heads up,
Yeah.
it is massive. Like, so I have like I have a mini tower computer, and it's almost as big as that, which is massive. And
Damn, that's big.
so it's big. It's big, dude. I mean, it's pretty. It looks super pretty. It's a beautiful console, but it is way too massive for what it is. No
Yeah,
console should be this big.
yeah, for sure.
But that's for me, man.
Other than gaming, what have you been up to? Give us a little bit of a backstory of how your COVID's been.
Dude, okay, yeah, that's actually crazy. So it's been a little bit of a journey. I think kind of from what right before COVID hit, I actually kind of put down the Hellcat project for a little
Yeah.
bit down. Like I got really serious with work. Work kind of became a priority. I'm a dad, and
Yep.
so that kind of took priority. And I wasn't too happy with the Hellcat project at that moment, to be like completely transparent. So kind of going into COVID was kind of this nice moment into being like kind of just finding myself. Right.
Right. I
What
feel like
was
a
I
lot.
missing?
I feel like a lot of us have been really soul searching, and I know. I mean, even starting this podcast, like this is like a thought that I was gonna be doing in the next couple of years, starting this, and I'm just like, why not now? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think everyone, those who have taken it upon themselves to really try and dive into this time and use this time wisely and growing themselves, that they really have. So, so Hellcat project back on now, or
So yes,
okay,
but here was the thing though. But here's the crazy thing is, so I spent like, what was it, from March all the way to like September, right? In this phase that I was just like, I want nothing to do with music anymore. Like, I'm like, I'm cool. I support the homies.
yeah,
And I had my time, right? And then we ended up going to the Red Line event, right? That you guys ended up
yeah,
hosting.
yeah, yeah.
And there was just this spark, man, that just kind of like ignited in me again. That I was like,
Oh, that's
why did
fun.
I put this? Why did I put this down? I was
Right.
like, why did I put this down? And there was this kind of like this weird sense of like, I think every musician kind of had it when the start of the pandemic happened, right? Like, what happens if we're not active?
Yeah.
Are we gonna get forgotten?
Right.
Is our hard work going to go through the window? And there
Yep.
was this weird notion that, like, as I was driving to Northern California, in Marysville, where you guys had the event, I was like, man, what if no one recognizes me? What if Hellcat really, like, there's this weird thing in my mind,
Yeah,
right?
you're established enough to where people know who you are, man. I have no doubt in my mind for that one.
And so, like, coming up there, man, like, I got these butterflies, man. Like, as cheesy as it
Yeah,
sounds.
yeah, me too,
So,
dude.
like,
It was a while, like in between shows for me, and once that happened, I was like, back to a little bit of normalcy. Like, this is great.
dude, yeah. And so that's the crazy thing. And so, like, it's crazy that we're having this interview, because that did not only re-sparked up Hellcat, but Hellcat was supposed to be a whole different project,
Right.
right? All entirely. Like, if anyone from Northern California knows that the demand for dubstep is like up here.
Yeah,
Like, it is
absolutely.
all-time high in demand. It is the genre that people want to hear, or it's tech house. It's either
I, I I've seen a lot of people get into EDM because of dubstep, and then they're like, oh, let's expand my knowledge. Oh, there's more genres in the industry than just
yeah.
dubstep and heavy bass music. So yeah,
And so that's one of the things that, like, going to Redline really started this big question in my head, and being like, why was I not happy with Hellcat? Why was I kind of frustrated with it?
yeah.
And it's because, like I said, like, it wasn't meant to be a dubstep project.
What was your original idea of it?
Oh my god. Okay, so kind of just going back, man, really like thinking back, what really got me into electronic music was actually Skrillex and Deadmau5. So of course it was very
like a lot
very
of us.
like yeah, just kind of like the whole like
Yeah.
like everybody in the electronic scene. But I really started discovering like Porter Robinson, started discovering a whole bunch like Hard Rock Sofa, and so
Hmm.
all these different artists that came from big room to dubstep and like trance and everything in between. That time era was really interesting because the genre wasn't big enough yet, but it had caught so much spotlight for everyone who kind of started like dabbing into the scene, right?
Right.
And so for me, when I established Hellcat, Hellcat wasn't even Hellcat. Hellcat was actually Nine Lives, and so
I think I've heard that in one of your previous interviews. Is your kind of story on that. So tell us a little bit about that.
yeah, so um, when I actually first started this whole journey, right? Um, I had just left the hardcore, post-hardcore metal scene, right? I'm a bass player,
Yeah.
and so I kind of always like kind of being the center of attention. I kind of liked
And
always having the
DJing's perfect.
spotlight, and DJing is perfect, right? But being a bass player, you are such an important, crucial piece of the band, but no one gives a flying fuck about you, sadly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's and like I loved it. It was fun. I love that performance side of things. I love getting out there, getting wild. But it, you had to share the stage a little bit, right? Even if you put in all the hard work yourself, no one really saw that,
Right.
right? No one
Right.
saw that behind the scenes.
Right.
And so eventually, it was I got kind of tired of it. I also got tired of working with bandmates who were on a different time schedule as me.
Yeah.
Because there would be moments where I'm like, "Hey guys, let's practice, let's practice, let's practice,"
No.
and
Oh, I got girlfriend, I got family, I got this, I got that. Yeah. I got work.
yeah,
Or yeah.
exactly. And like everyone's work ethic was just a little different.
Right.
Even if we did match it sometimes, we would get a lot done, but all that hard work on that day just fell through the roof,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And because we would have practiced for another 2 months, and finally I was like, you know what? I was like, I don't want to keep doing this. This was great, because at the time I was majoring in jazz, so I was a jazz major
Oh wow.
when I was
Okay.
doing this, and so like I was already in the music. I was already like heavily like have sold my soul, and so I was like, all right, guys, like like I'm already doing something musically outside of this,
Yeah.
so thank you for this. This is great, but peace out. And
Right.
so after that, I came to realize as a jazz major, I was already 3 years into school, that once with my degree, you can either teach or be a performer. There's only so much that you could do with it. And so I was kind of like, man, this is such a rough this is such a rough path. I was like, I'm also not trying to live paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
And so I ended up, leaving school for a little bit, and this is where my electronic journey actually kind of starts, and it's crazy how I actually started this. Is so when I left school, I was working retail. I was working for Zoomies at the time, and I was a second assistant manager. And so we had this employee who worked for a pyramid scheme. And
Ah.
so you're kind of like, where is this
Ah.
going? So at the time, um, I didn't know what raving really was, right? I didn't know this was like a whole other realm. I had just come from the metal scene, and but I always liked meeting new people. I always thought of myself being very outgoing, right? And
Right.
so this person, not gonna say their name, she was like, hey. She worked with me. She was she was one of my colleagues, and she was like, "Hey, you have such a great personality. Have you ever thought about starting a business, working with people who are as motivated and as outgoing as you?" And on my head, I was 21 at the time, so I was just kind of like, yeah, that'd be super cool. I was like in this like I gotta meet everyone phase,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I gotta
Yeah.
live life to the fullest. And so I show up to their meeting, right? They're like, all right, cool, show up to this time and place. So I show up to this meeting, and it's just a bunch of people, right? Who are all into electronic music, but I didn't know what this was about at first, right? And the person who is running this is like, hey, this is Electric State of Mind. We are throwing raves. You have to sell tickets. We're an event company. And so I was like, what did I get myself into? I didn't know what I had gotten myself into. And so right after the meeting, everyone starts pouring up drinks. Everyone starts blasting, at the time, Bangarang had just came out. It was
Oh,
such a huge thing, right? And so everyone was
that
blasting
album
it.
actually just came up on what, 9 years?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is wild. It is
Yeah.
wild. And so it was the biggest thing. And so I was listening to this and I was like, hey, I know this. This is Skrillex. And everyone's like, yeah, dude. Like this is like everyone's looking at me like, who is this kid? Right. And that's kind of how my EDM journey kind of started. Right. And so as I started helping this event company, I realized that I really wanted to be a DJ. I really wanted to like be a performer. I had left this whole music side of me behind, but I was like, wait,
You
there
can involve yourself with that,
I can
within that.
evolve.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I was like, this is so cool. I was like, but where do I start? Like, do I start producing? Do I start DJing?
I think
I didn't know,
that's everyone's big question. Where do we start?
and it's crazy because you can ask everybody and they'll tell you a different thing every time. It
Yep.
blows my mind. It
Yep.
always blows my mind. And there really is no right or wrong answer, but at the end of the day, you have to end up producing. And so at the
Absolutely.
time, I didn't know that, right? I didn't know that. And so of course, fast forward, right? I end up raving, I end up meeting all these people, and eventually I get really close to what is actually one of my best friends now. He's actually a hip hop producer. And so at the time, he had actually, he goes by the name of Drone. You guys can look him up. He's the homie. Him and I actually started Alpha Pack. It was a very
Okay.
like
Yeah.
Flosserdamus,
Yeah.
very trap, very bass heavy, right? And of course, as we were doing that, like our interests weren't on the same path. And so, like, hey, we were best friends. We're kind of like, hey, we started this, but it just we're not seeing eye to eye.
Right.
And so, he ended up, taking the full fledged on hip hop, and I stayed in the big room trap EDM phase of Hellcat, right? And so at that moment, I was like, man, I have a logo that I just established. Um, Nine Lives has actually Nine Lives was taken and had all Nine Lives was taken, and so I was like, all right, I was like, I don't want to change the cat because I had made the logo with the name and didn't really do my research because, like I said, I was so new.
Where did the cat thing, like, how did that happen? What was your idea behind that?
Oh my god, yeah. So like, I've always okay. So like, I mean, if anything, like you see the edginess out of me, the long hair, right?
Yeah.
But the cat thing was it. I've always loved cats, right? But the whole thing with the Nine Lives is like, hey, it was meant to be symbolic. It was meant to be
Cats, nine
symbolic,
lives.
right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so like, hey, I'm like, hey, you knock me down, I'm gonna get right back up,
Right.
right? But it was taken, and so like, I had a mentor at the time, and he's no longer a DJ, but he was blowing up at the time, right? He's actually now in tech, and so it. I was like sitting down with him, and I was like, I already spent money on this logo, and I was like, I don't want to go through the whole process of like rebranding
Right.
myself and coming up with a new name, but I was small enough that I could, right?
Yeah, it was a good time
So
if you wanted to.
yeah, it was perfect.
Right.
And so he was like, why not Hellcat? And I hated the name. It's like I hated the name. Every time this conversation comes up, I hated the name because I was like, what? I was like the car. I was like, I hate muscle cars. I'm a big GDM guy, so like
Right.
I love your Supras. I
Yeah.
love your Skyline. I'm a big fan. I was just like, ugh. I was like, fine. I was like, let me do some research because this time I had learned my lesson. Right? I wasn't
Yeah.
just gonna adopt something with not actually going into it. And so I started looking this up everywhere. You couldn't find anything attached to it but the car.
Okay.
So it was fair game. It was
Right.
like I could literally walk into the field and play ball, and I was like, all right, like no one has had it. No one had it on Instagram. No one had it on Facebook. No one. It was nowhere to be found. And I had spent at least 2 weeks really looking into it to make sure. And so finally, I was like, you know what? Let's pick it up. I'm gonna pick up the name Hellcat. And so as I pick up the name Hellcat, I finally get my first show, and this is in Oakland. And so this is at a dive bar, though. So this was the first time, and this is the first time that I really learned how cruel the industry can be, but it's very eye-opening, right? Like if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know your bearings, people are willing to kind of take advantage of you, right?
Absolutely.
Or treat you like crap. And
Yep.
so I was very new, right? Like it's like I like this was my first show. This was at a dive bar. I had never played on CDJs, so take note of this. I didn't even know what that was at
Oh,
the time.
wow.
So I was actually playing on a tractor controller.
Okay.
It was actually an S2, and so prior to that, I actually had owned a push, an Ableton push pad.
Ah,
And so when I first started like trying to like figure out what I wanted to DJ, Madian had been one of my biggest inspirations, right?
so fire.
And so fire, so great. But I was so new. I was so new and I didn't know, right? And so what really inspired, like we can dabble into like what got me into being
Yeah.
like I got to do this, right? But kind of continuing on with the Hellcat, like how the beginning of Hellcat in the industry was I had shown up with my controller. So I had my little backpack, I had my headphones, I had like all the power cables and everything. And I show up and I was like, all right, cool. Where do I set up? And the club owners look at me and all the other DJs look at me kind of like,
Stuff's already
what do
set up,
you,
man.
yeah, like stuff's already set up. What do you mean? And I was kind of like, what do you mean everything's set up? And they're like, oh, you got to play on these. And it was Nexus Mark, Nexus 2000,
Okay, yeah.
the club industry.
Right, right.
And so like I was panicking because I had never seen this. I didn't have a USB on me. The tractor wasn't fully syncing to the platform itself either. And at the time, I hadn't learned how to beat match properly either. So a lot of
That's
this was
very,
very
very,
new,
very, very important.
very, very important. And like if I were to like, let's just say if I were to even have a USB on me, I would have to have record box. I'd have to analyze all my
Right,
tracks,
right.
and I didn't have time for that. I was the opener, and so I was 23 at the time, and so you know, I they were like, all right, kid, we're gonna give you a break this time, but because you brought your own stuff, we're just gonna give you 15 minutes. And I was kind of like, man, I've been practicing all week.
Right.
And they're kind of like, yeah, but like it's just how things work. And really, that's not how things
That's
work.
not how things work, but yeah.
But of course, I was kind of like, all right, well, they're letting me use my equipment, so like, I guess beggars can't be choosers, right?
Right.
And so I had actually brought the most people that night because it was a really small event. So I had like 30 of my friends literally in the crowd,
That's sick. Right.
And so like I had set it up and I started playing and I started really getting into it. I was like 10 minutes in, right? And I had somebody tap me on the shoulder and they were like, hey, they're like, you're doing a really good job. They're like, but we actually want our buddy to play instead.
Oh, man.
And I looked at him and I was like,
Heartbreaking.
yeah, I was like, wait, but it hasn't even been 15 minutes yet. And they're like, yeah, but we're just going to get the party started now. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah.
I'm here. I'm playing. The party has already started. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. But of course, like I didn't know any better, so it's just kind of like, all right, I kind of walked away, kind of teary-eyed, and I was kind of like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. This sucks, right? I felt so defeated, right?
Bad first impression for you.
Bad first impression,
Yeah.
but also like this is when I kind of like I showing who I was to the San Francisco scene, to the whole Bay Area scene, right? And so of course I left some sour taste, right? Because a lot of people were like, this kid doesn't even know what he's doing. He showed up with his controller, right? And like it was a time that I was like very demotivated. I was just kind of like, man, is this what it is to be a DJ? I don't want to be a DJ anymore.
Right.
And so finally, after that day, I kind of got my bearings back and I was like, you know what? I was like, there's a ton of DJs like Porter Robinson, Matty Ann that don't play on CDJs. They don't. Like
a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah,
like,
a ton of people.
Everyone thinks CDJs. That's what DJs play on. Like, there's a lot more to that. Millennium, freaking Porter Robinson, Madion, all those guys. Like even Odessa, I don't think even plays on CDJs.
Yeah,
might have like
doesn't.
Yeah, and they might have a portion of it, but yeah, like a lot of top guys that people listen to that don't even play on CDJs.
Yeah, and so that was like that had lifted my spirits because I was really into Zed at the time.
Yeah.
And so really going to that, kind of going to that, what really inspired me to keep going was what inspired my whole really DJ journey altogether was I was at Beyond Wonderland.
Oh.
Yeah, I was at Beyond Wonderland.
Love
I was
that
like,
show.
this is sick, right? I was like, this is awesome. And, it got canceled in the Bay Area. They're like, that was the last time they had it.
Right.
And then all my friends, I'm still into raving still.
Yeah.
But all my friends were like, dude, we have to go to I think it was the 20th anniversary for Nocturnal Wonderland. They're like, we have to go. And I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. So fast forward to that night, right? That really like started that spark and like just picking up the push pad altogether, starting that journey. Was actually I was rolling tits. I was not on this planet, right? I was sitting on top of the hill and Madian was playing his adventure. His that album Adventure had just come out, and My God, dude, it was the most beautiful experience I had ever like been to. I'm sitting on the hill, you just see a mass of people like in front of the stage. And I take note, I am not totally myself, right? And I am not on this planet. And of course, everyone's vibing, everyone's feeling good. And I sit there and I look at my best friend and I'm like, this is where I want to be. This is it. I was like, I want to be where he is standing. If he can do it, I can do it.
Absolutely.
And everyone was like, he's just rolling his tits off. Whatever, we'll just let him talk his ass off, right?
Right.
But but that never left. That feeling that night never left, and even until that moment, right? I felt down on myself, and I was like, nah. I was like, you promised yourself you were going to be on that stage one day. You're going to make it there.
Do it.
And
Yep.
so I kept going. So finally, and that was the thing that like because I had left such a bad impression, like a lot of the other clubs were like, oh, this kid can't even play on CDJs. And so I was like, it didn't really defeat me altogether, right? Because I was like, okay, this is a chance for me to learn and
Yep.
figure out what I need to do. And so instead of pushing for more shows, I actually started making mixes. I started making a ton of mixes that that's actually what got Hellcat actually going.
Your
And
mixes are
so
fire. So.
thanks, man. And if you listen to them, you really don't hear that much dubstep at the
No.
start of it,
Yeah.
at all,
Yeah.
at all. And it that's really what got like a following, and like I had all these people like just hitting me up going, they're like, hey, let me know when your next show is. And I'm kind of like,
I don't have one.
I don't really have one, but thanks, right? And so finally I discovered this place that we all know of deeply, and if you've been there, you probably don't have to get vaccinated, and it's EPR.
Yeah.
Yup. And so that was a thing. And so my mentor was kind of like he was a resident DJing there, and
Okay.
so he was like, "Hey, you have all these people. Why don't you go and go network?" And I was like, "Network? How do I even network with these people?"
Talk to people. Talk about what you love.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
He's like, just go make friends. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And so I show up, right? And you see, this is the first time that I've ever been into an environment like this. It wasn't like a festival. It wasn't like an event. It was a club night.
Yeah.
But with electronic
Club shows
music.
are completely different than like big festival shows.
Completely
Yeah.
different. And so is the audience.
Yeah.
So is the audience. The
Yeah.
audience is also
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
And so you have 23-year-old Raph walking through the crowd handing flyers of his mixes and SoundCloud on it. And so that's what I was doing.
Good shit for taking it upon yourself to actually do some physical promo, man.
Yeah.
A lot of artists don't do that.
They don't. And I think that's where kind of like the battle between a lot of producers and I really come into that.
Yeah.
Butt heads.
Right.
We really butt heads on this concept, right? And it's I went out and a lot of my friends started seeing me do this hard work, and goddamn, I love these people to death, even to now. Like, it's because of them my name really got out there, because
Yep.
it didn't just start at the EPR club. Like we saw the progress there, right? And like we started handing out flyers, and then eventually my friends were like, why don't we do this at actual shows? Why don't we actually help you? Why don't we make this happen?
Right.
And I was like, are you sure? I was like, we're going to shows to
People
watch and have a
see
good
your drive
time.
and they want to hop on board. I even with this project, the podcast stuff, it's like I'm just gonna do it and see where the pieces fall. And a lot of people are like reposting stuff on Facebook and helping me do promo and marketing. I'm like, dude, I'm not even asking you to do this, but thank you, man. I appreciate it. And I think what really does that for people is like they see your drive, they see you want it, they see you putting in the hard work, and they're just like, dude, we believe in you. So that's a really cool story. I connect with a lot of that. On when you had that defining moment of, I want to be up there. For me, being in the business end, I also had that same kind of feeling, and why, working productions and work for production teams was such a big moment for me, because I remember being at shows, not looking at the artist saying I want to be doing that. I saw all the people on the side of the stage up front, up close, working the production teams. I'm like, I want to do that. So that was another, I relate in a same kind of a way, but a little bit of a different position. So that's a really cool story, man. One of the questions that I was going to ask you too is, what was, out of all of those times, what was the most memorable or defining moments in your career that really like set you forward?
Yeah, actually, it was. There's a couple. There's actually several, because
Okay.
it's because of this moment. I never went back, which is
Right.
crazy. like that moment for Hellcat changed entirely. So it was actually the night. It was actually the night that Sudden Death back to back AFK was in San
Oh,
Francisco at
oh,
Amplify,
that was before Sudden
and
Death was a huge headliner.
but
Yeah,
huge, right?
yeah,
And so that lineup was fat. Who did we have? It was AFK back to back Sudden Death. It was oh, man, I'm forgetting the lineup even now. Um, no, it was. Oh, how am I forgetting them? I need coffee. But let's just kind of talk about the night though, right? It's that night was huge, man, because it was the first time in 3 years, right, of me struggling to get a show, right? I wasn't. It was this kid who couldn't even get a show, and even when he did land his first SF show, there was barely anyone in the crowd.
yeah.
Um, and I had been given the opportunity to open the main stage, you know, and
That's a big
if
moment.
that's a big moment, right? Because even before the stage, even like before I even got on, that room was packed. When I mean
That's
packed,
awesome.
it was packed from front to
Yeah,
back to the
to the doors.
hallway,
Yeah.
everything. And so it that was my moment. That was my moment that really defined the Hellcat career because that it set the tone for I'm a death step DJ. You know, I'm very like Megalodon,
Yeah.
Mastodon, like
Yep.
so it's that was the style I really wanted people to remember me by. That crazy interaction, those mosh pits, that headbang experience. That was the night. That was the night that really defined and really pushed my whole career forward because from that night, I was getting emails, I was getting calls constantly going like, "Hey, we want to book you." I got my first SoCal show
That's
that
awesome.
very same month. Um,
I
it
remember you. I remember a couple years ago. I think it was like your first show in Vegas, finally too.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that actually all followed up the next year round, which was
yeah.
wild, right? And so like that's really what pushed it forward, right? And so like that coming up month, I got a call from Long Beach, and they were like, "Hey, we want to book you." And so I was like, "Yo, that's it." I was like, "I this is my first out of city show."
Right.
I was like, "I am finally getting to travel." Right? And so I go play Long Beach, right? And after Long Beach, that's when I actually get to play for Subphonics for the first time. Right after, right? It
The
was
homies.
the homies. It was the Exile versus BLC. It's when Collective.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that was
yeah.
that show. And so, um, that was my debut in Sacramento. And never did I expect that like I would ever be welcomed back that way. Because after that
I think that
show,
was the night that I met you. I think.
I think it was.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude, that show was so wild.
that was
It
a
was
fun show.
crazy. It was a fun show. I got to meet everyone's when I got to meet like a lot of the national entity team as
Yeah,
well. I got to meet the whole gang up in Sacramento, which is
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Um, and it's thanks to them really that like I guess I can't say I blew up in Sacramento, but I'm pretty
You
well
just
known.
got yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty well known.
Anytime you come to town, it usually sells out. So
It's rowdy, dude.
yeah,
Sacramento, hands down, one of my favorite cities to play. There's just something different about the Sacramento crowd
yeah.
that like
We're for sure like a big family.
a huge
Yeah,
family. And like even like the rave squad, like even the rave squads that appear, the idea of plur is actually a thing.
right.
And I think it's so amazing because as a DJ I always dreamed of getting off stage and then going up to the audience and people giving me candy, trading me candy,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like I that was something that I always wanted. It's something I always dreamed of, and like I actually collect them. So if you give people give me stuff,
Dude,
I
same. Over the last
yeah.
like 3, 4 years, I have so much candy that I'm not even a huge candy wearer, but just sitting like around my room or hung up or yeah, same thing. It's a huge thing, and I've gone to. I remember one time I was in my first huge festival was Hard Summer in 2018, and I walked out and I was like fully dressed in uh, what is it, Rick and Morty outfit,
Yeah.
and so this guy like we were like walking out. And then this guy was like, he like walked up to me, didn't say anything, had a Rick perler, hung it
Yeah.
around my neck, and was like, "Have a good night, bro. I love your outfit." It's like, dude, what? Thank
Damn.
you. So yeah, I think that was one of the things that really drew me into it too, is just like the community. And I talked about this in the first episode. Just the community is so strong, especially in Sacramento. So
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah,
my God. So kind of derail just a really quick thing.
yeah, yeah.
I have a funny story about Heart Summer 2018 actually.
Oh, were you
So
there?
I was there. I
Oh
was
shit.
there. Yeah. So um, that was probably one of the craziest shows I've ever attended because I lost my two front teeth that show. Let me.
Oh, oh,
So I was like, dude, here's the thing, man. That like the scene will never get to see this side of me
yeah.
unless like you party with me, right? We're
Right,
at
right,
actually an actual show. If at a show, I kind of put my head down. I'm like, I'm not Hellcat. I'm Raph.
right,
We're about to go wild, right?
right,
And
right.
so I hadn't seen these friends in about 3 years, right? And so this was a big show for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were super stoked, and we're like, all right, we're about to pound 10 shots of tequila each. And so it was so hot that it really actually didn't hit us.
Yeah, it doesn't really
Like,
hit you, and you're
yeah,
sweating so much.
I'm
Yeah,
sweating so much, and so I mean, I wasn't completely sober, but
right,
hey, I was a great time.
right.
And so I remember Sullivan King had just taken the stage,
Oh,
right? And so I was like, I've never seen him. I want to really see him play. And so we go, and everyone's like, they're like, dude, this is sick. He's killing it. And as he gets off stage, Bear Grylls gets on.
oh, oh,
Yeah, yeah, you
oh.
already know where this is going. And so I was like, dude, I'm a rail rider. The reason why my shows are so heavy is because I'm a headbanger myself.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it is to be in the rail. I know what it is to be in the audience. And if your DJ is throwing down and he is gigging down, you are too. I'm a big believer in that. And so I got up to the rail. I got on that rail and I was like, I'm about to fucking headbang for this guy. And I had never seen Bear Grylls, but I have heard all his live sets. So I'm a big fan. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, let's go. And so of course, let's fast forward midway through his set. I'm riding the rail. I am going in. And I think you know where this is
Oh
going.
yeah.
So the dude behind me, this pit opens up right behind us. So the dude behind me gets pushed. As he gets pushed, I'm going in. So he bumps into me. I go face in full first into the rail, and all
Oh,
my friends just look at me and they're like, "Oh no!" And they thought I had like broken my nose, and
right.
it was way worse.
Yeah, teeth are.
So
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh god!" I was like, "Oh god!" I felt it crumble in my mouth, and
Oh man.
I was like, oh no, what did I just do? I was like, oh god, what did I just do? And as I like start talking, my friends are like, you lost your front teeth, my guy, and I was like, oh
Not a good
no,
time.
not a good time.
This
And
amazing
so
weekend just turned to shit.
and so and so finally we're like, all right, we need to get you to the med tent. Let's figure out what we need to do. And so we finally get to a nurse, and the nurse is like, honey, you're fine. Your root is still there. You lost a huge chunk of your front teeth, but that can be fixed. Go enjoy the show. And so I was like, sick. I was like, all right. I was like, this is cool. I was like, all right. And so I did keep enjoying the show. And so that's kind of my story at Hard Summer 2018.
All right, so I wanted to dive in about just some of your get to know you as a person outside of the project. I
Yeah.
know you're a dad.
Hmm.
I know you're in the tech industry. You love video games. Something
Yeah.
I've been trying to get back into. I haven't played video games since I was in eighth grade, like full on playing video here and there with my
Yeah.
friends or whatever, but full on playing video games. I was thinking about getting a PS5, so I'm glad you got one of those because now I can ask you questions about it.
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah, so how old is your daughter?
Yeah, so she's 2.5.
Awesome.
And so yeah, she's in the terrible twos.
Yeah.
But here's the cool thing. So I'm a single dad. So she lives with me, so I'm with her all the time, right? Today's one of the days that grandma's kind of like, hey, I'm gonna take her out. You do your thing, you do your interview. So I'm like, all right,
Sweet.
cool.
Yeah.
Um, it it's one of those things that like I never imagined to be a parent, right? I never imagined to be a parent. It's not something that ever like crossed my mind. And if it did, I was like, I don't want kids. It's cool. I'd rather be like a dog dad
Yeah,
or a
see,
cat dad.
I'm on the other side of that. I've always do so super young age. My family's super strong, so that was one thing that I'm always like, I'm not in a rush to get there, but at some point in time, I definitely want that a part of my life.
And that's a crazy topic, right? Because like my family, it wasn't that we weren't strong enough, but like my parents had gone through a divorce, and my mom was a full-time working mom, so I never got to see her because she was.
That's the family background I come from as well. So yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, and so like I never got to see my mom, and so I was kind of on my own most of the time. And
Yeah,
so the concept of family was there, but it wasn't, right? And so the crazy part was I had my daughter. So I got told like, "Hey, we're having a kid." And I'm like, "Oh shit."
yeah,
All
right.
right,
Here we
let's
go.
here we go.
Yeah,
Right? And so never did I think that a child, a baby, and this newborn baby would bring a family together.
yeah,
Right? Like I don't think I've ever been so close to my family now than I ever have been in
that's
like my
fantastic.
26 years of living. Like we have movie nights with the family, like my mom's boyfriend comes over and like we just all have like a family dinner. We actually sit
That's
down
awesome,
together.
man.
And that's something that like I never imagined just being a parent would do to my family, right? And so it was something really healthy, man. That like I love my kid. She is like my biggest drive now for actually Hellcat as well.
Right.
Even just in the tech industry.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, she keeps me out of trouble.
yeah. Right. I can't do that. I'm a dad now.
Literally, that is
Yeah.
me like every weekend.
What is a big topic that I've kind of been diving into with myself and with this project is
Yeah.
finding balance and finding that time for your friends and family. And obviously we're in COVID right now, but still I live with I moved back in with my mom and my stepdad, and I try so hard. I have a lot of work to do. I'm also work full time at Amazon. I'm really busy. I'm a full time student as well, so I'm super busy. But finding that balance of like knowing when to clock out, turn off your computer, spend time with your loved ones. What is one of your biggest like how do you, what's your way to like remember that? Is it mainly like the driving force still your daughter, or is it just like did you realize that beforehand, or
Well, here's the crazy thing that COVID, like I'm bittersweet about COVID, right?
yeah,
I'm bittersweet.
yeah, a lot of us are.
But it really shed some light on a lot of things, right? And it showed, at least for me, and I know it did a lot of other people, it showed how glued I was to the world through social media,
Hmm.
right? And I realized that I started seeing my daughter actually like start talking, you know, and I realized that this thing right here, like this is great, right? It keeps me in touch with the world,
Yeah,
but I was gonna miss one of those moments
yeah,
that like I'm never gonna get again. And that kind of opened more, it shed more light on me as well with my friends and my family.
right.
That like that, yeah, we can always hang out and we can always have a movie night, but those movie nights are always going to be just a little bit different. And there's always going to be something different about those. And I
Yep,
have to constantly remind myself and be like, you know what? Like life is short. Life is
very.
short. And like one moment we can be like, oh, I'm gonna live X amount of years, and you know what? Like, it's I hate to get like super deep and dark about it, but one day we might not be here. It might
One
be
day
for
we're all
everyone.
good.
Yeah,
Everyone's gonna die at some point.
at some point, right? Whether it's natural causes, whether it's an accident, whatever it may be, I learned that with this is that we don't get this time back, right? We're only
Yeah,
given time is this weird currency that we don't see it as currency, but it is,
yeah,
right? And it's how we choose to spend it every day. And I came to realize that, you know, as COVID kind of hit, and I was like, all right, now I have all these weird times I'm working from home,
hmm,
and I get to see my family more. Should I balance things out? Like, what am I missing that's healthy for me and my family? And I came to realize I had like stopped going to the gym because I'm this constant gym monster, man, a
that was
cardio
the other thing I
monster.
wanted to ask you about. Yeah, I see and fans of yours see you posting on your Instagram all day, every day long. Always running, always doing 5Ks and craziness. So
Yeah,
proud of you for doing that, because I know with this COVID stuff, I used to compete in bodybuilding.
yeah, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, coming from that, and then I took some time off, just life changes. But um, I'm still like today, like I texted you earlier. I was like, hey, can we push this back just like 15 minutes because I'm working out right now, and but yeah, it's definitely still a huge thing that is on my plate, is also trying to stay in the gym with everything else on top of that. So uh,
Right? I
yeah,
think that's the hardest thing in balance, right?
yeah,
Because something I realized that me time And mental health is just as important as family time.
Yep.
And for me, like gaming isn't me time. I came to realize that
Yeah.
very very late, very late in the game, right? Because like it's funny that you said you're like, man, I haven't played video games forever. You know, like I actually didn't either. It
Yeah.
wasn't until I think it was last December that I had this weird like epiphany that I was like, wow, my room isn't like a safe haven for me. Like this should be a
Yeah.
place where I'm able to like clock out at the end of the day
Right. Right.
and like have fun and do things. And so I was like, man, I've always wanted a gaming room. That'd be so sick. And so that's kind of what got me into the gaming. But with like working out, right? Like us touching this topic, like with COVID hitting, I actually fell in love more with working out than I ever have. And
That's
it's
awesome.
because I challenged myself because I hated running outside. I hated working
Yeah.
out outside. I hated it, right? Just because of nature. It's either too hot, it's either too
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You can get hit by a car.
Yeah.
There's a ton of different things that I was just like, I hate. Like when you're at the gym, and I'm running my fat ass on that treadmill. There's at least 4 other people right beside me running it with me.
Yep.
And there's this motivational part to
Right.
it,
Right.
right? Because we're all in this together,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everyone made time to go to the gym just like you did. But all the gyms shut down. And so I was one of those people that I was at the gym constantly. I was like, either I was getting up super early to go for a run, or at the end of the day after work, I was going into the gym to finish off on a good note. But now, I wasn't paying
You
for a
can't
gym
go. Yeah.
membership.
You can't go to the gym. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what do? Where's my motivation? Right? What if it's too cold? Who motivates me? Nobody. It was myself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like, like the COVID like 15 kind of hit at the first start, and I was like, oh
Same.
no,
Same.
we're not letting this, we're not letting this happen. And so I was like, oh man, I was like, I hate running. But I came to realize that was also a big lesson for me too. It was not about telling myself I hate doing this. It's about we're gonna get through this. This is just one day. We're gonna learn to love it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just in the process. And before you know it, like I started off slow, right? Like 3 days out of the week. So I hated it at first. But then weirdly enough, just like in any workout, you find a zone. You zen in, you zone out, and you kind of think about kind of your daily routine through your workout. You kind of zone out and you think
Right.
about all the things you got to do. You kind of focus on yourself in that moment. And by the end of your workout, you've already planned out your day. You've honed in on yourself, and you just got through your workout. And that was something that I actually didn't get in the gym. Like, the gym was like, okay,
Right.
cool, I'm here, I'm gonna do it, cool. No, but because I'm like actually running outside, I'm on with nature. I'm actually like, what's the cheesiness? I'm in zen,
Right. Right. Right.
with myself,
Yeah.
meditating. It's like
I,
for
I
me, it's meditation.
I connect with that too because I've grown up. I was like, man, like for until like 3 years ago, I never read a book start to finish, not once. And during COVID, I've already read 4 books, and it's just completely that's kind of similar story. I was like, I don't want to do this, but we'll get through it, and I know it's like it'll be beneficial. Now it's like that is like I'm starting to love it because that is my me time, and I'm super big on like reading like self development books and like meditation books and like autobiographies, and like fiction doesn't really do it for me, but if I can learn something to apply to my own life, that's what really drives me to what books I read.
I actually crazy because I actually got really into reading because of COVID as well.
Yeah,
Like again, and since you're really like if you're up for recommendations, right? So
absolutely.
so Apple has a book, right? Or like we use a book as kind of reference,
Hmm.
but it's kind of like for development, self development, right? And so like one of my leaders was like, hey. We offer this. Like, why don't you you can buy this outside of Barnes and Noble. Like anyone
Right.
can purchase it, but like you should look into this. And so it's called FYI. It's for your improvement. And
Perfect.
so I was kind of like, okay, like, cool, like, let me pick it up. And
Give
so
it a
I
shot.
did.
Yeah.
And it's all about competencies. It's all about
Oh.
things that really, that like, it's a skill based book, and it really touches topics like drive for results,
Hmm.
leadership. And if you're like, oh, I want to be more of a leader, you'll go to the page and they'll tell you exactly. They're like, okay, cool. This is what this competency is. This is what it looks like if you're able to perform it. These are the things that you need to be doing. If you
Oh, that's
can't do
super cool.
them, which is super cool, they're like, if you overuse the skill, the competency is working against you because you're
Right.
overusing it.
Right.
So there
Right.
has to be a balance. So it's really cool because the book will break down if you're underusing it, if you're overusing it, but if you have a balance, it'll tell you what you're doing to keep it in balance. And so I totally recommend it. It's a phenomenal
I will
book.
definitely check that out. Thank you for the recommendation.
Yeah, no, of course. It has actually also helped me, right? And I think there's a competency specifically in the book that's drive for results. I'm really big on that. Super, super big, right?
So
And
go
there's
into the meaning on that because I'm not even 100% sure what I know what
yeah,
that means.
so drive for results is really the
Okay.
persistency in achieving something,
Right.
right? Even, whether it's a negative result or a bad result, you're always on the go, right?
Yeah.
You don't know what it's gonna like. If you don't commit to it, you're never gonna know the end process,
Yeah.
right? And I
You got
think
to
that
dive
was a
into it.
you
Yep.
got to dive into it, and that was a big thing that like I was. I've always considered myself. There's another competency in the book that's called that's action oriented, and action
Ah.
oriented means you're always the first one to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You're always the first one to take initiative of it, right? And I've always been that way, but
Same.
but I saw this challenging wall that I would start it but never finish. And so I was like, there has to be something in this book for this competency.
Right.
There's got to be something for this. And finally, I found it, and it was drive for results, right? And
Sweet.
drive for results really require, but it does require you to be action oriented.
Right. Right.
But you have to be able to finish the task that you
Yeah.
started.
Yeah.
And so, like, that was one of my favorite competencies that I worked on during COVID. And, like, it has actually been a big part of my workouts, me getting up in the morning, me
Sweet.
being a dad every day,
Yeah.
just getting music. And so, all this jazz, because of this competency, I recommend anyone who, if anyone's listening to this podcast, if you're listening to this, it's a phenomenal book. It's amazing. It's not like a read book. It's a very it's kind of like a checklist based.
Okay.
There's quick things but you think you could get it for free because I got it for free on Google.
Sweet.
And so I totally recommend it. It's phenomenal. It's at least 400 pages. There's a little bit of everything for everyone. So I
Awesome.
totally recommend it.
Sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
So just to wrap this up because we're kind of running out of time. What is on the horizon for the Hellcat project and anything that you're trying to accomplish in 2021, both for the project and just for yourself in your own personal life?
Yeah. Oh man, this has been a great interview, by the way. It was very. Let's actually hone in a little bit on the music part right here because I know this is a
Yeah.
big part of the podcast, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Hellcat, I'm working currently on an EP,
Sweet.
but here's the cool thing: is that Hellcat, even though I'm working on EP, that's getting put a little bit on the side. I'm actually starting a new project. And something that a lot of people have been asking questions. They're like, is Hellcat going to end? Is it
I've
going to
seen you.
stop?
I've seen you been hinting at that. So.
And so it's actually the Killjoy project, and it's everything that Hellcat was supposed to be. So
Ah.
and it's very Elenium, it's very Adventure Club, it's very pretty, but it's very heavy at the same time. And I've loved those type of performances for a long time.
It's funny
I've
that
loved
funny that you mentioned Adventure Club. That's actually my opening song for this episode. So.
I love Adventure Club. I'm a diehard Adventure Club fan.
Same.
When I saw him at Wobbleland, it's what really inspired me to want to pursue this, but never really went full force. I was like kind of like, I was like, Bay Area doesn't really like that prettiness and that heaviness together in a local artist. They like it in bigger headliners, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But finally now I'm like, no, we got the time now. So the Killjoy project is going to be exactly that. It's going to be exactly everything that you see in the Hellcat, right? In the Hellcat performance, because I take pride in I think that's what I take so much pride in the Hellcat is not even like any of the mixes I've made or the production. It's really the performance,
Right.
right? Like I think Skrillex has really been that big inspiration for me. He hops on the decks, hops off the decks.
Yeah.
He's very
Stands on the
proud.
decks.
And dude, that was a big thing when that dropped.
Right.
But the man can literally afford probably 80 of those.
Oh yeah.
He probably stepped on it and he was like, here's
Yeah.
another.
Right.
But yeah, dude, actually I'm really excited that people are actually really looking forward to this project.
I'm excited because I mean, you're not quite a huge headliner yet, and I feel like taking that creative journey into I feel like especially in Sacramento, the Bay Area, and Reno, it's very dubstep. Everyone who I'm going to be a DJ. That's what they play, but we need more diversity in our smaller acts too. And I feel like that's really going to give you a foot in the door to really, if you want to go full time with this, I think that's going to be a great move for you.
Yeah, and
I'm excited.
it's nerve wracking because it really was.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I actually announce this to the audience?
Right.
How do I tell them, hey,
My
guys?
podcast.
Exactly, right? It's one of those things I love dubstep. Don't get me wrong, I do. I love it to death. It is literally what has given me the platform to be what I've wanted. I never thought, like, there's a picture that I always love posting, right? And it's the one with National Entity. It's the one where I'm standing and the whole crowd, like the crowd is packed front to back.
Yeah. That one's going on the Instagram here in a couple days. So
That was a dream come true, because I've played for a lot of shows, and a lot of them, since the Sudden Death show, have all been packed. I've been very fortunate. I'm very lucky. But it had never been something like that. And the Sacramento crowd really like came out, and I didn't realize I had that much of a following in Sacramento, which is crazy, right? And so that photo is always this reminder of if you did this, you can do the Killjoy project.
Absolutely.
And people who support you are going to support the vision that you have for it.
I feel like a lot of people who love dubstep and are into the actual music, they also like diversity a lot of the times, and that with that diversity, like especially if you combine like some like dubstep drops like Illenium or whatever within that music, people are going to love it. Illenium is such a huge movement right now, and especially just that whole like melodic side of the dubstep industry. Yeah. I think that's what's really like hitting hard right now. It's not really like rhythm's kind of starting to fall off, and the feelsy stuff is starting to catch on to people. So
which is great. And oh my god, like
so I think this is a perfect time for you too.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about it, and like I've been saying that because Illenium's popping off, Slander's popping off too right now with the
one of my
concept.
favorites. Yeah,
like phenomenal. I think that's it's like one of my favorite mix workouts. Literally to work out to is literally their 2019 EDC set.
Such a good set. So many people. I wasn't able to make that EDC. I've actually never been to EDC yet, but
oh my god, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
So we got to plan this. We got to go together.
Yes, we do.
So but people that I know went, and they're like, I was like, what was your favorite set from EDC? And they're like, hands down, Slander. And that set, and I've listened to that set multiple times. It's amazing.
It's so pretty, but it's so heavy. And that's what I want to aim for. That like in my next live performance, that's not like a live stream. I already have a set planned, so I already have something set out to kind of mimic kind of that style. But I go awesome. Full force. I go full force, and there's just no chill, right? But when it chills, it's very pretty. It's very to like kind of reel you in, hook you in, and it's like feel it and cry with me.
Right. the new underground artist that's gonna bring the cry banging to Sacramento in the Bay Area.
That should be a genre, cry
banging. Sweet.
Oh,
well,
man.
We're gonna wrap this up. How can the listeners get in touch with you, and where can they find you?
Yeah, so my Facebook's it's going under construction.
Okay.
But if you were to look me up on Facebook, it's Cat Goes Wub, right? And so if we were to do another interview another time, we can talk about that specific name as well.
I'll definitely have you back, especially once the new project launches.
And so if you want to look for me, you can look me up on Hellcat Music. Like it's just all together, one word, no capitalization, everything just spelled normally. HELL, CAT, and then music right after it. On Instagram, on SoundCloud, on Twitter. I'm not so active. I should be more active, but like I told you guys, like I've been doing my best not to spend so much time on the internet. Yeah. Because the pandemic happened, and everybody was like, Twitter is our new place.
Right. Thanks, Trump.
So here is like those are the places that you can find me. I know I have a ton of people always message me out too, like a ton of fans. Just like shooting messages and saying like, what's up? Just like trying to talk to me. I'm always open. I do take a while to respond, so I do apologize, but I'm always open to just talking to people, meeting fans. Like I have people constantly tell me that they started DJing because of me. I love to hear that, right? It's kind of why I started. So thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you. We'll talk to you. We'll bring you back on the show once the new project launches as well.
Oh yeah, it'll be very soon. Don't worry.
Sweet. Well, thank you, man, and we'll talk soon.
All right, man.